Loud. Okay, very good. It is 5 o'clock and we will begin the meeting. We will open the meeting. First on the agenda is a presentation by Community Council on housing. And I guess, Catherine, do I introduce you?
I think it's going to be myself and Laura and Rachel presenting, and I think we could each introduce ourselves, and then I think Laura is going to introduce the presentation. How does that sound?
Sounds good. Whoever is first on, you may begin. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll just go ahead and introduce myself, and then maybe Rachel and then Laura can introduce herself and kick us off. So I'm Catherine Beninga. I work with Community Council. I'm the Community Research Coordinator. And thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Rachel Elfenbein. I'm the Advocacy Coordinator with Community Council, and I coordinate the Affordable Housing Implementation Task Force, which Laura Prado is the volunteer chair of, and I'll pass it off to Laura.
Thanks. My name is Laura Prado, and I am on the board for Walla Walla Community Council, and also volunteer for the Inventory Data and Measurement Committee, which is the committee that put together all of the statistics and just kind of general picture of what the housing situation is in our region that we're going to be presenting tonight. Part of our work on the subcommittee has been to gather reliable information and sources for measuring the housing market in the Walla Walla Valley, which includes Walla Walla County and Columbia County in Washington, and the Milton Freewater area in Oregon. We're going to be sharing some information from our research on the housing market for purchase and rental of homes that is relevant just to Columbia County for tonight. This presentation follows a recently completed report on the entire Walla Walla Valley region, which is originally presented to stakeholders in August 2021. And with their feedback and some insight, we completed the report in February 22. And the report is available for download on Community Council's website on the affordable housing page.
Thank you, Laura. And I just want to check, can everyone see our PowerPoint? Is that on your screen over there in the port's offices?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. So I'm going to advance. Okay, so to start off, what we like to do is start off with the definition of affordable housing, because different people actually tend to use the term differently. And so we wanted to make sure that all the stakeholders involved in housing in our region use the term in the same way, so that we're all kind of on the same page in terms of what affordable housing is and what it isn't. So according to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, housing is affordable when a household spends no more than 30% of their gross income on housing costs, including utilities. So this definition of affordable housing is used widely by different government agencies, public service providers, housing developers at national, state, and local levels. So we thought it was important to use this definition because it's used so widely. Okay, so if we know that affordable housing is less than 30% spent on housing costs by a household of their income, the definition of unaffordable housing, therefore, is when a household spends more than 30% of their gross income on housing costs, including utilities. So there's two terms that we use here, and these are widely used terms as well in the housing sphere. One is cost burden, and that refers specifically to households that spend more than 30% of their income on their housing costs. And then there's severely cost burden, when a household spends more than 50% of their gross income on housing costs, including utilities. So the important thing to note about these definitions of affordable housing and unaffordable housing is that they apply to everyone, regardless of their income. So what you'll see tonight with our presentation is we use these terms to look at the whole spectrum of the population in Columbia County, not just folks, for example, who have housing choice vouchers and need housing choice vouchers in order to access housing or public housing, for example. So it's a widely used term that's used by everyone. And these are the terms that we're using with you tonight when we refer to households that are cost burdened and households that are severely cost burdened, and what a household can afford to either rent or to buy when it comes to their housing. Okay. Catherine, I think it's off to you now.
Oh, sorry about that. So we just wanted to share a little explanation of the different income types that people tend to talk about when they're considering what affordable housing is to different income levels. We talk about median household income, and what median household income is that income for all of the households in a defined region. And a household can be comprised of just one person, or it can be many people who are unrelated living together. And sorry, there's an error in this table. The 2020 data is the most recent data, and that's what you see there, that's 61,779. So that's median household income. Census also tabulates median family income, and that one's different. That looks at the median income for all of the families in a defined area. And so families are always comprised of at least two people, often more, and those people are related to each other by marriage, birth, adoption, and live together. And again, sorry, the text is wrong there, but the data is right. The data for 2020 median family income in Columbia County is quite high. It's 90,652. And then we have area median income, and this one is always somewhere between median household income and median family income. This is median income in a defined area that is calculated by HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, each year. And AMI is based on median family income, that second one, and then adjusted by the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index. And AMI is synonymous with HUD's median family income. And this is the standard that is used to calculate income limits by service providers and government agencies when they're considering qualifications for various housing programs. And so in Columbia County for 2020, area median income was 66,300. And we, thank you. Okay, so this is an affordable mortgage calculator that we put together, and this calculator answers the question, how much income do you need in order to afford the median price home? And so the way that this works is we started with the median sales price of a home in Columbia County for 2021. The median price home was $256,200. So that's the starting point. So we asked the question, how much income does it take to afford that? So we set a number of different parameters, and the parameters really matter because depending on how you set these, you'll get a different outcome. So the first parameter was a down payment, and we set 5% down payment. That's fairly standard these days for new homeowners or first-time buyers. Some programs will allow somebody put down only 3%, but 5% is more common. Some people think of a down payment has to be 20%, and it does not. That would be an ideal down payment because if you put down 20%, you would not have to pay mortgage insurance, but most lenders don't require a 20% down payment. So we subtract the down payment from the sales price and we get the loan amount. And then we use the calculator to figure how much the monthly payment would need to be based on an interest rate and a term. And the interest rate that we use for this calculation is the current interest rate. This was pulled last week. This is Freddie Mac's interest rate. So this is current at 5.27%. which if you've been paying attention to interest rates, they've been going up steadily recently. Last year it was only 3%, and this is a big difference. And so that will really affect the price that you could afford to pay for a home. So if you do that calculation, you come up with a monthly mortgage payment that's principal and interest of $1,347. And some calculators will stop there and then calculate how much income you need to make to be able to afford that house. But if we do that, then we're not taking into consideration all of the other costs associated with home ownership. And so the next section does that. So if you multiply that 1,347 by 12, you get an annual mortgage payment of $16,164. And then you have to add on the property tax. And we used a figure that is about an average for Columbia County. It does vary, but 1.19% was a good average. This household would also have to pay mortgage insurance because of the loan to value ratio, and that can range anywhere from 0.025 to 2% depending on the down payment and the mortgage type, and 0.85% is a good average. And then of course, when the household pays off 20% of the value of the homes, they wouldn't have to pay the mortgage insurance anymore, so the monthly payment would go down. And then they would also have to pay home insurance, and we got a value of 0.29% from McDonald Zaring Insurance as a typical rate for home insurance. And so as you can see, all of these costs add up. So the annual housing costs, then the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance total $22,022. If you divide that by 12, you get their monthly housing costs, which is $1,835. And then if we adhere to that 30% of income so that the home is considered affordable to this household, they would need to earn $6,117 per month. And annually that comes out to $73,406 per year. So right now, in order to afford the median priced home in Columbia County, a household would need to earn just over $73,000.
So, this kind of goes back to the previous slide that we had talked about with the income type. And this just puts those various incomes in perspective with using the affordable home price calculator, and just sort of highlights why the measurement you use really matters. So for the median household income, which is typically the lowest of the three, brings the affordable home price down to about $225,000, just a little less than $225,000. When you're using the median family income, which is significantly higher, you have $105,000 more that becomes the affordable home for that family. And that's why we like to use median income. It's more, it's kind of the middle ground between the two. It's still skewed a little bit more toward the household income side of things, but it kind of balances out, and that brings it to an average of $240,662 as being a reasonably affordable home for the AMI in Columbia County.
Hey, so this slide is the percentage of households in Columbia County that are cost burdened. So if we go back to one of our first slides, we remember that households that are cost burdened are spending more than 30% of their income on their housing costs, and households that are severely cost burdened are spending more than 50% or half of their income on their housing costs. So in our calculation, we only include households that pay rent or a mortgage. We do not include households that do not pay rent or mortgages. Though there are households that do not pay rent or mortgages, we have excluded them from the calculation because including them would underestimate the percentage of households struggling with housing costs. So the data presented here on cost burden households is the most recent available. It's from 2015 to 2020. So it does not cover the last year and a half. So what we can see in this slide is that the percentage of Columbia County households that are cost burdened and severely cost burdened decreased between 2015 and 2020. At the same time, we see that there was a bigger decrease for cost burdened households than there was for severely cost burdened households. So here what we see is the percentage of renters in the county who are cost burdened. And we can see that it decreased substantially between 2015 and 2020. This slide is the percentage of homeowners in Columbia County who are cost burdened, in other words, paying more than 30% of their income on their housing costs. So here we see that the percentage of homeowners in the county who are cost burdened decreased between 2015 and 2020. It did actually decrease less than the percentage of renters who are cost burdened. However, basically in 2020, what we see is almost equivalent between the percentage of renters and percentage of homeowners who are cost burdened, or more or less 1/4 of renters and 1/4 of homeowners. So one explanation for the decline in the percentage of homeowners who are cost burdened is lower interest rates. If you remember from the beginning of the pandemic up through probably the beginning of this year, we did have record low interest rates. Mortgage rates were at historic lows up until this year, ranging from around 3% to just under 5%. And so homeowners may have been refinancing their mortgages to take advantage of lower interest rates and reduce their monthly payments. And at the same time, new homeowners were able to purchase homes at lower interest rates up until now. So what this slide does is it breaks down by income who is experiencing cost burden and severe cost burden in Columbia County. So we see the proportion of households per income category who experience cost burden and severe cost burden. So in other words, this slide shows us who bears the brunt of cost burden and severe cost burden in Columbia County. So generally, the lowest income households are disproportionately cost burdened and severely cost burdened. So we see here, beginning with extremely low income households who are earning less than 30% area median income. Approximately 71% of those households in the county are cost burdened or extremely cost burdened. The higher the income a household earns, the less likely it will be cost burdened. For example, we can see that approximately 21% of moderate income households in the county are cost burdened or severely cost burdened. And those are households earning between 80 and 100% area median income. And we remember the AMI was about $66,000. So we can see here the poorest households are disproportionately experiencing challenges with cost burden and severe cost burden in the county. Oh, Laura, I think you're on mute.
Thanks, just noticed that. Okay, so this chart shows the relationship between the area median income, affordable home price, and the median home price between 2010 and 2021. As you can see, slight fluctuations in the median income really amplify the affordable home price a lot. For the past several years, median home price has been somewhat mirrored or has somewhat mirrored the trends of the area median income, which is a good thing and provides baseline information for comparison. The limitations of this graphic are that it only considers the median income rather than all of the income cohorts. For example, those who earn significantly less or significantly more than the AMI. And we'll cover that in more detail in the next slide. Another thing that's important to note here is that the calculations for the affordable home price uses the 3% interest rate for 2021, which was the actual rate for 2021. And if we were to recalculate it using today's interest rate of 5.27, the affordable housing price would be $262,804.
Do you mind if we click back? I just wanted to point one thing out. I think people probably noticed this, but one thing to point out is that the area median income in Columbia County increased by 25% from 2010 to 2021, while the median home price increased by 105% during that same time frame. So it's showing that the home prices are growing faster than incomes are in Columbia County. And then, as Laura said, home prices have remained affordable because area median income is still relatively high and interest rates have been very favorable until, well, they're starting to change. So next slide, please. So this slide attempts to address the problem or the challenge that Laura mentioned with the last slide, and that was that when you're just comparing median to median, you don't get a sense of the full distribution. And so this is a little bit of a complicated slide, so I'll walk you through it. On the left-hand side, the gray bars represent households by income level. So for example, you can see at the bottom, there are 6% of the households in Columbia County earn less than $10,000 annually. And then if you go on up, you see 9% of the households earn between 10,000 and 15,000 and so on and so on. And then what we've put in the gray bar, the text in the gray bar, the numbers is the amount that household at the upper limit of that cohort that they can spend on housing costs affordably. So for example, if you earn $15,000 per year, you can afford to spend $375 on rent or a mortgage. Another example, just looking at the chart, if you earn up to $75,000 per year, you can afford to spend $1,875 on your rent or a mortgage. The gold bars on the other side show the number or the percentage of homes that were sold by price that were affordable to each of those income cohorts. So and this was looking at homes that sold in Columbia County during the period between June 2019 and June 2021. And there were not a lot of homes that sold during that period. I think there's about 50. And so what you see there is, so for example, if we take that income cohort that's earning between $35,000 and $50,000 or $49,999 per year, they can afford to spend $1,250 on their rent or mortgage, which would equal an affordable home price of up to $207,030. And during that time frame, only 22% of the homes were available at that price range. And so what you see is, and the gold bars are cumulative. So as you go up, if you earn, say, $100,000, you can afford a home that's priced up to $414,000, and everything else that's priced less than that, right? And so you see the inequality in the distribution of what people are earning and what homes are selling for. And then this chart does sort of a similar thing in terms of looking at what folks can afford based on what they earn. And this is looking at affordable rent by hourly wage in Columbia County. So we've taken the minimum wage and said, well, what can somebody who's earning the minimum wage afford? They can afford to spend $753 on rent per month. And then we asked, well, what can they get in Columbia for that? And in order to figure that out, we used what's called fair market rent. Fair market rent is determined again by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and it's set at 40% of the market rate in an area. This is a good source of rental data information, which is actually sort of challenging to get. So according to this data, somebody in Columbia County earning minimum wage could afford a studio, but not quite a 1-bedroom unit, not that, at fair market rent. A household earning 2 minimum wages could afford to spend $1,500 per month on rent, and they could afford a studio, a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom units, and a 3-bedroom unit. And then with the last bar is showing how much area median income is per hour. It would be $34.81 per hour. At that rate, you could spend $1,810 per month on rent, and you could afford all of a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, a 1-bedroom, etc. Is this me, Rachel? Yeah, okay, I'll go ahead. So this one, this is what we call the household mismatch data. This shows the house by unit, number of units, and households by number of people in the household. So for example, the blue bar at the far left shows the number of studio and 1-bedroom units in Columbia County, and the greenish bar next to it shows the number of 1-person households in Columbia County. And so what you see is that there are a lot more 1-person households than there are studio and 1-bedroom units. Then moving across the chart, you see the next one is 2-bedroom units and 2-person households, and finally 3-bedroom units and 3- and 4-person households. So you can see that there are a lot of 3-bedroom units and not a lot of 3- and 4-person households. So it's just to ask the question, are the units matching the demographics? Do we have the right buildings for our population?
And what we concluded too from our report was that this data suggests that some of our households may be overhoused in the sense that they occupy and pay for a larger home than they need. And it also suggests that there's a significant need for small home options, including multifamily buildings in our region. Additional small homes that could benefit seniors, for example, who are looking to downsize, voucher holders looking for small units, young adults, and couples without children.
So thank you for your time and attention during our presentation. If you are interested in this topic, we invite you to read the original Affordable Housing Study, which was completed in 2019, the Affordable Housing Data and Measurement Report completed in 2022, or reach out to us directly. We would be happy to have you join us for a meeting or provide resources that you might find interesting or useful. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura, and we're happy to answer questions that you may have as well.
So my first question is this on the community council page where we can see this presentation and look at those numbers a little more clearly?
The report is currently on the website. The slideshow is not, and I will leave that to Rachel and Catherine, whether that's going to change or not. That's their decision.
Okay.
The report does have all the data for Columbia County. It's a long report, maybe 30 some pages. But one of the things that Catherine has just recently done in the past few days is update the data, which, you know, we have in the slides where we have some 2021 data, for example. So what we've delivered tonight has a little bit more up-to-date data than the report does. So we're happy to send you the slideshow. And then Catherine, I don't know if you want to comment about putting the slideshow on the website.
Yeah, I don't see why we wouldn't be able to do that. So thanks. Obviously I have a couple edits I want to make in there, but yeah, we can share that out for definitely. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. So when we talked about the definition of 30% gross, that was with utilities for affordable housing. When you were going through your slides and you were saying you can afford this much rent and this much, was the utilities calculated into that as well? Because I didn't hear anything about the utilities. I just heard about you can afford this much house.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. No, we did not calculate the utilities in there, and that is important to point out. It's just that utility bills fluctuate so significantly from household to household that we didn't feel like we could provide a, an accurate value for that. The other thing is that, so it's important to know that affordability is at the very top of the affordability threshold, right? And so that's assuming that the household maybe doesn't have other debts or that sort of thing, and that utility costs would also be a factor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but when we're talking about affordable, when you're saying you can afford this, there is another chunk that is not in there in the presentation.
That's right. Yeah.
You could or could not afford.
Yes.
And let's see that. Do you know how many, did you do a research on how many, you were talking about there's a lack of, or there's the lowest in the small housing in Columbia County? Do you know how many units or apartments or what we have that would be considered small housing in this county? I can't quite
Yeah, I
read.
think it's is it the 259? So is
Yeah,
that,
so
Yeah.
that's in this graph, the 259 above the kind of blue-gray column is the total number of units, and then 522 is the number of one-person households in Columbia County.
So the units would count like apartments and stuff like that. That's a unit, right? And then
Yeah.
small. Okay, I thought it was there, but I can't quite, my vision is a little, that's why it'd be nice to see it,
Yes.
even if it wasn't on your website. If you were to get it to
Send it to me.
the director so that we could take a look at it, so that I could dive into that a little more so we could kind of see those numbers. But
Sure.
thank you for your time and effort this evening on this. I'm sure there'll be more questions.
yeah, I've got some, but I'll let you guys finish first.
I don't have any questions at this time. I think it'd be great, like the other commissioners said, if we could get copies of these slides so that we could review them in more detail and closer. I'm sure that we will come up with some questions as we dive into the materials, but I really appreciate your time and thank you for sharing all this information with us. It's good information to have and I appreciate it.
I do have one other thing that I have some notes on is, are you anticipating, I see the numbers that were 2020, and today is a way different day than it was in 2020 is what the dollar will get you today, and availability. So is there a process that you guys are looking at the inflation, the supply chain, the interest rates, those type of things that are coming down the track to be able to guide us down the road?
Another great question. This data that we're relying on is census data. So, and the 2020 data was just released last month. So there's a real lag time in the data, and I think that's a really important thing to consider. So we won't have data for the current year for quite a while. And so I think, when you're getting down to strategies and that sort of thing, what's going to be important is talking to folks in the industry and understanding what's happening with costs. We've gotten some estimates on what it costs to build in Walla Walla County. We haven't done that for Columbia County, but I could certainly ask. And that, I've been informed that those costs go up significantly, regularly. The one thing that we can calculate easily is how the interest rates are affecting affordability. That's something that's easy to do. But in terms of understanding how sort of inflation right now is impacting the housing market, I think that's not something that we can determine based on census data. But I know that Laura's working on this question in some of her other work, so I'm gonna ask Laura if she has anything to add to that.
Not really. I think that just keeping aware of the inflation and then also of certain policy changes. For example, the end of the protections for renters where, you know, that prevented anybody from being able to raise the rent on homes. That has gone away, but that's not going to be reflected in this data. So just kind of keeping apprised of the types of changes that are going on, both economically with the numbers that we're seeing, but then also with the policies that are coming down.
Thank you.
And if I can just add, like you noted very well, you know, we don't have accurate rent data for this year, but just anecdotally, what we've heard from renters who we've interviewed is that their rents are increasing substantially this year since the eviction moratorium lifted last year. You know, speaking to renters who might be experienced 20% rent increases this year. So I think you're right. The data will look quite different once we have, especially like end of 2021 after the eviction moratorium lifted, and 2022 data, and with the construction costs really increasing really rapidly too, in terms of what a household can afford and what homes are being sold for, that also affects that as well. And so I think once we have data for 2022, the picture might look quite different in Columbia County. I think we have to wait and see, but you know, elsewhere we're seeing you know, a significant price increases both for purchasing homes and for renting homes.
I've got a couple
I don't
questions.
have any more.
Okay, so that 259, was that studio and one bedroom? Okay,
Yes, that's combined.
and then, I have found in my research, often the median income to be, let's see, how can I put this? To not always be an accurate reflection of this community, because we do have, so, you know, people that are fairly wealthy landowners that can skew median as compared to average. But have you found in your work that median is what makes more sense to use?
You know, Jenny, typically we do use median for this kind of data because it is that halfway point, and it's usually the average that skews it, usually north if you have some high earners. But that's an interesting question. If your community is different in that regard, I'd be happy to look at that. But I will say that for if you're looking at census data, they usually have median and average. I'll look at that. I don't know. That's interesting. But it certainly would matter if you're looking at household or family or area median income. All those values are different. And we did find that since people are choosing a different one, that we're all coming up with different numbers for what's an affordable home. And so again, we use that area median income because it is usually somewhere between household income and family income. And it's updated more rapidly. So they just released area median income in April for 2022. So you could use that value to get a sense of what's affordable for a median household or a median income.
That's fine. I was just curious.
Yeah.
I know our wages have gone up.
Yep.
But nicely here, especially since they started building wind farms, because the wages are closer to living wage. Okay, and then I was surprised. I think I'm surprised that it wasn't worse, the affordability, than it is. And I think it might lead to what Johnny said about timing, because I kind of feel like the housing prices here went up later than other places. So I actually thought it would be worse than what you presented. So, and then finally, sometimes there's a Washington real estate website that has affordability indexes that they seem to kind of keep up with home sales more recently. I don't know if you guys have ever looked at that, and I don't know how official it is, but that's where I've always gone to look up housing affordability statewide. I think they go by county. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, we use that data a lot, Jenny. And we do not use that housing affordability index because their affordability calculation it includes a 20% down payment, which is high and will push what's affordable up higher. And it doesn't include taxes or insurance. And so that will also push it higher. So in a sense, I think that our calculator will give you a better approximation of what's actually affordable.
Got it. And I would just say that what I've heard anecdotally here actually matches what you're saying perfectly. I've been trying to figure out why we have the same number of homes here we had, you know, so many years ago when we had such higher population here. But it's because there are just so many fewer numbers of people in the houses. You know, people don't have as many children. And I know when my mom was aging, she was in a 3-bedroom house and there just really wasn't any option here. You know, there wasn't any assisted living or smaller places for the elderly. So I think you're probably right that needing the smaller units across the income spectrum, I would say, across the affordability spectrum. So
Thank you,
that,
Jenny. And I would, just to respond to one of the comments that you made, in which Catherine did make the point in the presentation, but just to reiterate, yeah, I think we too were a bit surprised that things don't look as bad as we thought it would be when we looked at the Columbia County data. But what is concerning is that the area median income over 11 years has gone up 25%, whereas the median home price has gone up 105% during that same time period. And if you look at the graph, you really see the prices start to escalate like 2018, 2019. And so what you're talking about is this is like what you just shared kind of from your experience, from what you've witnessed, is that the home prices are really escalating right now. So what's concerning is that we're going to have for Columbia County a growing affordability gap between what the area median income is and what the median home price is, because at this 105%, like going almost straight up, is looking very different from income increases. So, you know, we might see something very different once we get the 2022 data, especially when we factor in the mortgage rate increases.
I know we talked about Columbia County, but how's that compare those increases from the 25% and the 105% for other areas that you guys have taken a look at, whether it's Milton Freeway or Walla Walla? Where does that measure out comparatively speaking, or do you know?
We did compare it, and Walla Walla County is looking different. The median home price is above the affordable home price right now. So I think it was like 2019, Catherine, is that correct? Where the lines started to crisscross, where you would actually see the yellow line above the blue line. So the median home price really started to increase over what the affordable home price has been for Walla Walla County. Catherine, do you remember from Milton Freewater area, or Laura?
I don't, I do remember that the home prices had increased that over that same time period in Walla Walla, just a little bit more. I think it was 110%, but they started a lot higher. The home prices in Walla Walla started a lot higher. And so, as Rachel said, they're outpacing what's an affordable home price. I don't recall Milton Freewater off the top of my head.
Yeah, the reason I asked.
I don't either. I do remember that it was, I think, fairly comparable to Walla Walla County. But I don't remember off the top of my head exactly what it was.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because it doesn't appear that we are isolated, that it's an isolated incident. It's going not only across the region, across the state, across the country, that we're seeing these things. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for that comment. That's something that we note in the long report as well. As it's important to think about housing regionally and kind of like a regional ecosystem, because we know, for example, that folks who can't afford housing in Walla Walla and College Place are moving to Dayton and to Waitsburg, where they can find more affordable homes. But then once you factor in the cost of transportation, it becomes less and less affordable. So, we know that we're a region where people are commuting and maybe living in one community and working in another. So what's happening in Walla Walla is affecting Columbia County and vice versa.
Right, no further questions.
No.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you so
again.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
ladies.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
So Jenny, my computer was, going from Zoom to the agenda and I just turned it back. Okay, I'll bring the
So sorry.
PowerPoint tomorrow. No problem. Okay, on the agenda, public comments may be made at this time, limit to 3 minutes. If there's anyone here who would like to make public comments? No? Anyone joining us via Zoom, anyone would like to make any public comments? Limited to 3 minutes, please.
This is Joy Smith with Waitsburg Commercial Club. Currently, I'm in Washington DC right now at a housing conference, and we've heard some very interesting things. And there are communities all across the nation who are reacting to the affordable housing challenges. I put some things in the chat, but basically, I'll just kind of recap that a little bit. That economic development, you can't talk about it without talking about housing, because housing is infrastructure, and the ability to be comfortably housed allows people to build wealth and to self-determine. And CEOs and business owners are paying a lot of attention to what's happening in the challenges with housing, because it's impacting their ability to attract and hire employees. And that's happening in Dayton. You just recently lost a restaurant that was one of their challenges, was to get employees. Housing is the largest single component of the consumer price index. It's the largest impact on the consumer price index. So across the nation, 46% of the renters are cost burdened by housing costs. And then there's a shortage of inventory. Approximately 5.5 million homes are needed across the nation. And that in itself is driving up housing costs and increasing the cost of purchasing or renting homes. And as the stress on incomes are increased due to higher housing costs and repairs on homes start to be unaffordable, neighborhoods deteriorate, and that impacts the overall perception of community and your businesses. So this is where it starts to become very important to what the port does as economic development. Many times people are using home equity. That's one of the biggest sources to tap into startup funds for businesses is home equity. So less equity means less investable income. So home equity is an economic stimulus. And as people become unable to purchase homes and build wealth, then economic development decreases. So I know that everyone here in this room and all the commissioners are hearing from the community where the stresses of housing are coming from. One of the comments was made that Waitsburg has affordable housing. We do not have affordable housing. We also don't have any housing inventory to speak of. It's always been a challenge anyway, but lately, in the last year and a half, 2 years, there's been no inventory to speak of, and what comes on the market is gone almost before it hits the market. So, and our prices have always been comparable to Walla Walla. So, yeah, thank you.
Anyone else, if you could put your hand up, if you would like to make a comment, please. Is that it, Jenny?
Looks like it. I don't think we have another page of people.
Very good.
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
We're good.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, on the agenda then, administrative items to approve the minutes.
Can we introduce Tracy first?
Yes, please.
So Melody, she's actually here, has taken a job back with Best Western. It's a different job that she had before. She felt like it was something she really wanted to do. Outside sales, is that what you called it?
Yeah, hospitality, sales and marketing.
For 4 hotels.
Yep.
So her last day was the end of April. And so I really quick, while I knew she was available, snagged Tracy. I stole her from public health. Because I've worked with Tracy before. She's worked at the chamber and she's wonderful and can help with events and businesses and bookkeeping and all kinds of things. So this is Tracy Clark.
Hello.
She's worked at Bluewood and helped out at the chamber over the years. And so I'm thrilled to have her.
Thank you. Nice to
Yeah,
meet you.
That's why we had a quick change because I
Yes.
didn't, it's hard to find somebody to hire. And so I
Yeah,
worked on Tracy.
very
So,
good.
yes.
Well, good luck to you on your new job.
Thank you.
Yes.
And she still attends our economic development meetings because that's
Yes.
part of her business.
Okay, very good. All right, now to administrative items, approved minutes.
Did you send them out as corrected, email wise? Oh, okay, we talked about that, but didn't do it. Seth did have one correction in the motion on page 2. So instead of what was sent to you in writing, did you print out version for them?
Yes.
Okay, so what you have in front of you is the corrected version. And that was that no further action be taken on funding the Tushi Valley Trail project until we gain clear and obvious majority opinion through an advisory vote that the community is for the trail. Commissioner Watt seconded, motion passed. So there were 2 motions made. It was a little
Yes.
confusing. So it was kind of a combination of the 2. And Seth said he was fine with that wording.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and that was the only change we made.
Okay. For the record, under public comment on that second page, we did receive 2 letters in opposition. But that's minimal, I guess. I didn't have any other questions on the minutes.
Do you want that changed or do you care?
Unless someone out there who opposed thinks that.
We'd
we-
have to reprint that one page that,
We'll
which page is
leave
it
like
on?
that. Second page.
Okay.
Under public comment, that I read names of over 70 people who submitted letters, receiving 1 letter in opposition, it says.
We
there.
can change that because then Johnny can still sign, the signature page is a separate page.
Sure,
Because he can still sign them and then we just change it,
okay,
reprint it.
perfect.
Okay. If that's all right with you too.
So, can we make a motion to accept them as corrected?
I would move that we accept the minutes as corrected.
Make sure you get motions.
Second that.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion carried. So minutes, the policy, or excuse me, budget report and approved vouchers.
Okay, so the budget report was sent to you in your packet. One change that's made in the giant piece that we printed out and we sent it to Seth electronically was that the bookkeeper had not put the formula right on the $400,000 that we put in temporary investment and the reserve and the cash balance and all that stuff. So that has been repaired. Basically, the 400,000 in temporary investment is approximately what we have on hand for broadband match. So we might as well make some interest, which it's been years since we've earned any interest. So it's kind of fun.
Mhm,
Earn a little interest while we have that.
mhm.
Otherwise, are there any questions on the income or expenses?
Can you talk to, about the railroad leases, the 11,722?
Oh, geez. There is no railroad lease income. Did she put it on the wrong line? Yep, she sure did. That's not correct.
And then my other question.
So what has happened is that things have shifted, probably. So I don't have a clue what that is.
Okay,
I will have to go back and ask her.
all right,
Sorry.
no problem. Expenses. So I see that I would presume it's Anderson Perry received 18,879.
Mhm.
However, on the voucher page, it only shows 19,942.
Anderson Perry received 2 checks. One was 18,879.80 for the bike trail design, and the other one was 1,062.37 for the marina design. So then the check is combined to Anderson Perry, so we don't write 2 checks.
Okay,
That makes sense.
so, and so the other 1,000 is under Port Marina, there you go.
Correct. That is
There you
the
go.
RV park design
There
stuff
you
we're
go,
working on.
1,062.37, got it.
Yeah.
All right. That's the only questions I had on there, and the only thing I had a question on the voucher.
Yeah, 11,000, Jiminy Christmas.
Ooh, Christmas. Okay.
So Jeannie asked a couple questions that I was wondering about too, but
Uh-huh.
also under the advertising, expenses are kind of high this month. But it's,
Yeah, so what we've done is there is a group out of Walla Walla called Accessible Walla Walla.
Mhm.
And they are building a website, and it's gonna be for both Walla Walla and Columbia counties that shows places that people that with disabilities can go for tour, yes, for tourism purposes. Her name is Betsy Haddon. I don't know if any of you know her, but her husband was being a good Samaritan on the side of the road and got hit, and he's in a wheelchair. And so this has been for years, and so this is kind of been a passion of hers. So
Right.
we agreed to help pay for them to set that up, since
Okay.
it helps with Columbia County.
yeah,
And that was 1,500, that was 1,500 of the
Right.
2,000, yeah.
So that's just that's not a setup, it's not gonna be a reoccurring.
No, it's a
Okay.
one-time thing. Yeah, I thought we had room in the budget, so I thought it was a very worthy thing to do, so,
Right.
yeah. And even though it says accessible Walla Walla, it is for
Mhm.
both counties.
Well, that's another question I had.
Okay, great. All right, so you have is this the only one for signing? Okay, I will pass oh yeah, there, it's got the number. Pass that down for you guys to sign.
One question in the vouchers,
Uh-huh.
there's one for Columbia County Parks and Recreation.
That was lease renting the youth building for our last
Yeah, yeah.
meeting.
Okay.
I thought it was gonna be 250, but it was only 150, so that was good, yeah. Yeah, I guess they have a department called Parks and Recreation
Right, and
now.
I didn't think
That's,
we had a Parks and Rec.
it's new, yeah. Yeah, apparently they do.
Will we get a revised?
That one's, oh,
budgetary?
you mean without the 11,000?
Yeah.
Sure.
Good.
Sure, yeah, I had the bookkeeper come back twice to fix things, and we missed that, so I
And
don't.
the, and
have
the
a clue what it is.
400,000, is that?
This printed one is
Oh, right,
fixed,
that
yeah.
one is correct,
That's
yeah.
fixed, yeah. Yeah, I will find out what, we have, so what we have is that, we have our deposit sheets and our budget report and our leasehold tax report that we have to keep for the state. They're all, linked through this thing called AutoLink. And so what happens is if she moves, if it's like something gets moved in one document, then it'll feed a number into another document that is not accurate. And so that's, something has happened in that regard. And I have absolutely no idea what that is. So we will figure it out. And then the other thing is that we get a report from the county each month that says exactly what our income and expenditures were that we reported to them. And so Joanne balances this to the county report, but since this is May, we don't have the county report yet, so when she got it in June, then she would, if we didn't see it, she would see it, and then she would say, yeah, that's, so like this month in April, she's gone back and balanced that with the
Right.
county's report, yeah.
Thank
So there is a checks and balance to that eventually besides us, but
you. Mhm.
still, it's, yeah.
Thank you. All right, the policy 4-2022 on cell phones.
Yeah, so I thought since we had portable electronic devices, I would just change the name of it and simplify it.
Yes.
I think that I took out the part about splitting because I've used my personal cell phone for years here and split the cost with the port, and I think it's probably just best if I get a separate phone.
Mhm.
So I took that out of the policy,
Mhm.
and I will get a separate phone. So, so anyway, yeah, so it's up to you to adopt this. We probably should re-adopt it since we got the tablets, and I'm open to suggestions if you guys have any.
Any comments on this?
I think the new policy looks good.
Yeah.
All right.
I would
Simplified
agree.
and
Yeah, it's simple. Yeah, it's more streamlined. So,
Right. Do we need a motion on this?
yes, yes, you do.
We could have a motion then.
I'll move for that we accept this policy as written, as revised.
I will second that, or
Yes,
Yeah.
all in favor, all in favor to accept this new portable electronic device policy, say pro.
Say aye.
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 you know, I've been to other meetings, you know which one, anyway, so I always have to remember, where am I right now? Aye. All opposed. Motion carried.
And I will get you new portable electronic devices that work, okay? I'll spend more money on it. Okay,
So I'll bring this tomorrow with the power.
Okay.
Done. Okay.
the only thing I forgot to mention under budget report is that every year we compile what's called an annual financial statement. We pay an accountant to go through our bookkeeping, and they compile a report into the categories that the state of Washington likes. It's called BARS. It's a acronym for the state codes, the basic accounting principles that they want us to use. And so we pay Patton and Associates to do that. He is working on it right now, and I have a draft to review. And then we're required by law to report certain portions of that report to the state, because the state auditor's office has a place there where you can go and look up every government's numbers. And so that has to be done by May 31st. So just so you know, that is underway. I have a draft and I will approve it. And then when it's complete, you'll get a bound copy that you can take and look at yourself. I can send you an electronic one.
Sure.
I will have to explain it a little bit to you, because they take our numbers that make sense and they put them in funky categories. And they do things like they have what they call operating expenses, and that and then operating revenue, and the tax revenue we get is not considered operating revenue. It's listed in a separate category. So it always looks like we're operating in the red, like we had discussed before. But then you add in the bottom category, which they call other income or something, and it's all fine. But it is a fun, and it has all of the bonds that we hold and when their due dates are. So it's a good thing. I refer to it pretty much all year after we've gotten it, whenever we get requests from the state, and we can answer them in their terminology.
All right,
So that is underway. Just wanted to let you know.
all right. So that was instead of leases, or?
No, I just had gone back to budget. I'm
Oh, okay.
sorry, I forgot to tell you that.
No
And
problem.
leases, we don't have any leases this month. We are working on a draft lease with the firm that wants to have a lease with a purchase to option to purchase the 2 parcels. So that is underway with the port attorney,
All right,
as is the appraisal, the effort to get the lots appraised.
all right, thank you. All right, an update on port assets, Rock Hill Industrial.
Okay, we missed somebody wanting to admit. I don't know where they went. Sorry, whoever you are. Okay, okay, we had a Rock Hill workday on Sunday, May 1st, and Kelly came down and spent the afternoon with me. And probably, there were at least 30 people here. It was great. They did a lot of work on the trail here behind the office to try to make the water drain a little differently. And they call it the tread, make the tread wider in certain places. And it just cost us we bought water, and actually we didn't buy water. We bought some drinks and some little sub sandwiches and fed them lunch afterwards. So that was all it cost us. So that went well. 3 Pines bookkeeping is moving out of the Cameron Street co-working. If you recall, she was renting by the month,
Right.
waiting for internet, and she now has a date that she's going to receive Starlink at home, so she will be moving out. Then Columbia Pulp has moved out of 521 Cameron, so it is now available for lease again as of just a few days ago. So we have a spec sheet for that space, and we will start advertising that space as available for lease. I thought I'd start by advertising out of town first, see if we get any takers from businesses that would like to move here before we do any advertising locally. The weeds in the industrial park are driving me crazy, but I did get a great proposal from Z Pest Services. We signed it on the 28th. So he said he'd try to come as soon as the weather allowed, but he does all the weed control in the wind farms, and it was a really reasonable price. So compared to the Sensky one, it was just awesome. So hopefully they'll be getting sprayed very soon, because there are weeds everywhere. He's going to do sterilization in the gravel and then spot spray on the edges.
It's amazing what a little bit of rain will do for
Oh,
weeds.
Crazy.
We have quite a bit also.
Yeah. And then, let's see, I had weeds. Okay, then, we had the the inspection at the USDA building down at 531 Cameron. Because it's a government contract, they inspect it every year. They are in the lease. We are required to paint the interior of the office this year, even though it doesn't need it, but we're required to. So we have to do it. If we don't do it, we have to take money off the rent. So we are looking for a firm to paint that office. And they continue to complain about the shrubs out in front. We have trimmed them. We've done everything we can to what we feel like is get it out of their line of sight. And they still complain. So I would actually just like to take the shrubs out unless you have a burning opposition. I would like to just rip them out and put rocks in. And then they won't have any shrubs in their way.
I know.
So this is right down there by Cameron Street, like where Cameron and Highway 12 all come together. Any issues with ripping them out? Okay. And I would, rather than replant anything, I think it's just best if we could put some decorative rock there. Okay. All right, great. That's it for Rock Hill.
Okay, Lions Ferry Marina, item B.
Okay, we had our marina inspection with the US Army Corps of Engineers on May 2nd, and we had 2 very minor issues, which is very typical. And so that went really well. And then the only other thing is, and we can talk about it we'll just do it at the end about meeting time, but in the past, we have historically met at Lions Ferry in June. Our issue is we have to do Zoom. So we have to decide whether or not to go there. So we can talk about that at the end of the meeting when we do our next meeting location. Otherwise, things are going great out there. It looks great. It looks really good. Got it in good shape.
Glad there were 2 minor issues.
Very minor.
All right, Blue Mountain Station.
Okay, so we are planning for food stock. We've got 2 bands booked and 1 food truck, and it's great to have Tracy on board. She's helping with that. She and Kelly are doing a lot of planning. And then I wanted to talk about the soil test since we got the email from Betty. So I called the lab today that did the soil test for the gardener that said the arsenic level was fine. And so he said there is nothing about the arsenic level that leads them to believe lead levels would be high. But the only way to know is to do more soil samples, and they would be $25 each if we did 2 more samples. So yeah, you guys decide what you want to do.
I mean, at the present time, my concern initially when we went to that was daycare and, the possibility of daycare and children on soils that had arsenic, because it's horrible, deadly, obviously. If it's not in the garden, I don't know that that is a big concern, that the lead issue is a big concern, nor would it be anywhere else if something besides a daycare or, something was going to be installed out there.
Yep.
I don't know if we need
Doesn't-
another.
Doesn't matter to
I don't
me.
know that we need anything further than that either, because the main purpose of it was, like you said, for the daycare facility to be out there, and for the garden area where we're growing vegetables and dirt and whatnot.
Right.
But the concept is pretty minimal. Put some minds at ease, so I don't know that.
It makes no difference to me. If you guys want to do it, it's fine. It doesn't matter. I asked them if I could just do it myself, and they said, absolutely. I could go
Right.
take the samples and just make sure I mark them and mail it to them.
Okay,
They said I could.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if there's a
Another-
need, Johnny.
Well, the other thing, we could just make a note that in the event that we do make a disturbance of the soil in a different area out there,
Mhm.
that we do conduct those tests at that time.
Mhm.
So maybe just make a move to, and if we do exploratory work, or if we're looking at other options or what have you, that we do make sure that that is one of the prerequisites to be digging out there in those areas.
Sure.
If we have an indication, somebody has said, hey, this is a possibility, it makes sense to make sure that that's not an issue if we do disturb it.
Mhm. Okay.
So if we do a bunch of digging out in those areas that we haven't already tested, then that would be what I would suggest, but either way, it doesn't.
yeah, the only thing is that they told me to test in the top 6 inches, and I mean, I don't know, it's, the farming is, think about the 6 inches, because the rest of it's farmland.
Mhm.
The 6 inches is being continually
moved.
moved.
So
So,
realistically, you probably have to go
Yeah.
a little deeper. So I would,
Maybe, I don't
would,
know.
you know, we'll cross that bridge, but
Okay.
just, that would be a suggestion for that.
Yeah, I think as we develop further and add new buildings, we start doing other things, and, you know, maybe we need to spend a little bit on it to test it at that time, over
Right.
stirring stuff up. But
Right.
I think for.
But if
right
we're gonna
now,
be laying asphalt and or concrete on top of soil, then we're really not disturbing the
Right.
top
Yeah.
6 inches. So
Depends on what you're building.
depends on what you're building, exactly. So,
all right, very good.
so you'll respond to Betty?
Yes,
Okay.
she might be on.
Oh, there she is. Yes.
And it should be one of those standard operating procedures anytime we go and do something like that anyways, that we do a bunch of testing and stuff.
Well, we did, it just wasn't lead.
Yeah.
I think those are, because I asked, because I have a copy of the test and it's just not the standard, you know. Lead and arsenic are not, they tested for pH and they have tested for a ton of things, but it wasn't lead or arsenic, so,
And maybe do the history, that there's a little history there.
yeah.
That we add that to our scope of work.
Could be,
when we-
yeah.
When we do something out there.
There are old maps, I am told, that show where all the orchards were in the state. And that would definitely indicate, you know, whether or not there's a possibility of any lead arsenic in the soil. I don't know if we can access those, but at the present time, I would say, let's just wait for a time when there is some construction and or.
Because at this time, we don't really know where to test, other than just
Just be
guessing.
it'd be two random spots. I just have to
Right.
pick two random
No, no, no,
spots, yeah.
I would agree that we wait.
All right, okay, that's it there.
Okay, and then, Columbia Rail.
I am coordinating, or trying to coordinate right of way weed control with the city and with the railroad operator and the port. I put the rail operator in touch with Ryan, the new city public works guy, who's great, and he wanted to know how wide they sprayed. I sent him an email. I haven't had a response yet. I don't remember. I thought it was 14 feet, you know, which is 14 feet total, but I'm checking to make sure. And then the Public Works guy and I have come to an agreement to, if the port buys the chemical, he'll spray on the areas that are, you know, down by the depot where it's really obvious there. Like between the railroad track and Commercial Street, it's just really bad puncture vine and stuff. So Ryan said he'll spray at their cost if we pay for the chemical. So McGregor's given us a charge account and we're gonna pay for a little chemical. So he's great though. And then a Lincoln car is coming to Dayton for All Wheels Weekend. I don't know if any of you remember when it was here many years ago, probably 25 years ago. It is a car that Lincoln slept in, a train car, and the owner of that car lives in Othello, I believe, and he likes to get it out where the public can see it. So he has it in Walla Walla right now, and he is insisting on bringing it to town. The depot had said, please do it for home tours, but he wants to come for All Wheels. I think he's gonna do both. So it will be, the rail operator has to bring it here for him. They have to bring it here with an engine. And it will be parked behind the courthouse during All Wheels Weekend. And the guy who owns it will provide tours. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a cool thing, very cool car.
Very good.
And that's all I have there.
Okay, very good. So under community and economic development, your report?
Yeah, I want to give a little bit of an update, if I can find the right piece of paper here. So a couple of business updates I've heard downtown. I think y'all know WaFd is closing. I don't know if you'd heard that they're closing this branch. And I understand that Bank of Oregon may be interested in their building. And then just today, I heard that Bank of Idaho is purchasing Home Street. Yeah, that's what I heard today. And I think so, a couple of us were talking about what in the world is going on with banking, and I think that the pandemic has caused a lot of people to bank online. And I think they're losing their ability or need to have bricks and mortar, which is a little bit unfortunate because it's really, really hard when you're a business not to have a bricks and mortar bank, because you need to make deposits every night. You know, the town of Wallace, Idaho has no bank
Hmm.
at all,
Mhm.
none. So I don't know what their businesses are doing, but anyway, the USDA grant that we've been working on with, Table Rock is being submitted today. I prepared the environmental documents for the 2 lots that are part of the lease purchase agreement and, signed it, and they're submitting it with the grant. And, they're working on their additional financing. Tracy shared an export training from the state of Washington with our business contact list. And Tracy and I will be working at, it's called the Reality Fair. The school is holding a reality fair. And they're going to teach kids real life financial scenarios, which I thought sounded like a really good idea. And so they needed help. So we're gonna go down for the day and help with that. I've got a workshop next week I'm attending to learn about another state grant program coming out. I think they're calling it Working Washington 5. I really don't know if any of our businesses will even qualify since everybody here is long, the pandemic is long behind them, but I need to attend and make sure. The chamber is holding a childcare forum on May 23rd at 6 p.m. at the Fairgrounds Pavilion. They'll have a panel and it's just to provide information about childcare needs here and possibilities for solutions, I think.
Could you give me the date again?
May 23rd,
Mhm.
6 p.m. Fairgrounds Pavilion. Tracy and I are both working on the All Wheels event as usual. We have 2 applicants for the final $5,000 we have from our Novia grant for startups. So those are both under review. We just got those within the last week or 2. I sent some geo-targeted digital information to 20 target businesses for Blue Mountain Station recruitment. However, we are going to be running into problems with food and beverage processing if something doesn't happen with the city and the wastewater treatment plant.
Mhm.
So unless there's a huge objection, I would like to prepare a letter for the city, just explaining some of the ways it can affect, the businesses may be affected moving forward. I spoke with the Public Works Director about what effects there'd be right now. Right now, capacity is not the problem and never has been, so it's not like they can't hook up another house. But what it is the discharge, and he said that industrial businesses as well as food processing businesses are going to give them pause. So that is not good for economic development.
Mhm.
So I would like to prepare a letter and send to them and just make sure they understand the urgency in economic development that we need to find a solution.
Absolutely.
What's the chance we can review that letter before we get it sent out?
Well, I guess you can. I was gonna have it be from me. Do you want it to be from you?
I just want to take a look at it, see where we're at with it before it gets sent out. to me.
Okay, that's fairly unusual if it's a letter from me, but I can, I guess.
Thank you.
Okay. Housing, issues with housing.
I don't have anything. We had the presentation, so I didn't know if you want to talk about it anymore or not.
No, I'll be eager to see the presentation that is given. If they're sharing our presentation, broadband.
Fiber has been ordered. We got really lucky and got a supplier that is able to supply all the same fiber made in America by July. So it's very exciting. It keeps our project on target. So 298,000 plus tax. So that was, we got 4 responses to the RFP, so that's good news. So it has been ordered and we have passed their credit check, so we don't have to pay for it till it's delivered. But it is on its way. And see some other broadband issues. The Department of Revenue is, we charge leasehold tax, ports charge leasehold tax to those who rent from us and turn that over to the state. 100% over to the state, and then a portion of it comes back to our communities. And the Department of Revenue is, in other communities, is not only getting the leasehold tax from the fiber projects, but they're making the providers charge sales tax. So there are a lot of ports it's not sitting well with. Because it feels like double taxation. So there are some people working on that. You may have seen a recent announcement about a big federal program that provides broadband to those that have low income. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knows it's really not a new program. It's called the EBB program, and both of the providers that will be leasing fiber from the port and providing to this community are part of that program. So they already have that opportunity for people to get if they meet certain income levels. I completed 3 reports that had to be turned into granting agencies, both private and public, on the broadband funding in the last 3 weeks or so. And I would like to start, I need to spend some more time now writing things up and kind of explaining the project to the community. You know, it's hard to, it's not always easy to grasp, so need to do spend some more time describing it and sending things out and newsletters and articles in the paper and stuff like that. So that is, now that we know we've got the fiber and we're going to be on target for schedule wise, that's what I'm planning to do.
Back to the report that you are going to be, the memo that you're sending to the chamber. Is it an issue that we are micromanaging memos that are normally done by the director?
To the chamber or to the
Just to the
city?
city.
To the city,
Yeah.
It's just another government entity, and if she's representing the port, now if it's her personal,
she's
that's
representing
whatever.
it as the manager of the port.
just a simple question, I'd like to take a look at before we take it to another entity, that's all.
She's right, though, that it is unusual. I mean, it's not like I'm
I
gonna
get
be
that.
saying something that's controversial, you know?
Nope, I just want to take a look at it before we send it to another entity, that's all.
Okay. All right, I personally don't feel that's necessary, but thank you for your opinion there. All right.
Just gonna finish trail design as is,
So
no,
we're back.
yep, no changes, no nothing anymore. Just finish the design and put it on the shelf.
Okay.
Get the survey,
Thank you.
get the survey done.
At this point, I would like to read a letter that I wrote the night of our meeting in April, after the April 13th. Again, I wasn't able to sleep that night, so I was busy writing the letter. So this is an open letter to those in attendance at our April 13th meeting. As chairperson of the Port Commissioners, I would like to comment on our meeting of April, specifically our discussion whether to seek funding for the Touchy Valley Trail. I speak for myself as chairperson of the commission and would like to apologize to the public for the disservice on the way the issue was presented. First of all, it was a disservice to all those who attended because it was a long meeting, partly because of the extended comment periods we provided, obviously. I noticed many of you leaving after the 3rd hour of the meeting. You came to hear the vote on the issue and were not awarded that opportunity. It was a disservice to Anderson Perry, SPVV Landscape, and our manager, Jenny Dickinson, since they were not provided an opportunity to clarify or rebut the concerns voiced by Commissioner Bryan. To have given them an opportunity to address all of those issues would have been getting into the 5th hour of that meeting. Ultimately, it was a disservice to you, Commissioner Bryan, for not being given the clarification you needed on the extensive issues you addressed. I acknowledge the tremendous time and effort you took in documenting and presenting your concerns. Unfortunately, you didn't get those issues clarified, and therefore we're missing important facts to help in making a well-informed decision. This is not intended as a reprimand to either you or to Commissioner Watts. I alone am at fault here for not yet presiding over a well-run and time-efficient meeting. Yes, we're all greenhorns with only 4 months behind us and under our belts as Port Commissioner or as chairperson. It is my hope that in the future, we 3 commissioners come to the meetings with all questions and concerns asked and answered by our experts beforehand so that we can be confident we're making the best informed decision. I'm not an expert, nor intend to be in any issues pertaining to proposed port projects. That's why we solicit the best facts and opinions of our manager and the consultants who have prepared the information for us. Are they fallible? Absolutely, they're human. That's why we held a special workshop. If we questioned any of what was provided to us, it's our responsibility to seek those answers before attending a meeting where a decision is being requested by the commission. It's also my hope as chairperson of this committee, we can hold a meeting that does not last 4 hours again. It's not my desire to sit and address what should have been asked and answered before the meeting. Our meetings are intended to be a place where we come informed, having already asked the questions of our experts. And if we have in fact asked those questions in advance and have not received clarification to our satisfaction, it's totally acceptable to bring up those issues again at the meeting where we're making a decision before they're made, and not be making a decision based on unanswered concerns. With your attention to detail, Commissioner Bryan, and with your commitment to our community, Commissioner Watts, I sincerely think we can do good things for Columbia County. So with that being said, on April 21st, I emailed and asked Anderson Perry to provide clarifications on your concerns, Commissioner Bryan, and I received their response today. I was hoping that I would have come early enough to make copies for you to have, and hopefully we can give copies to the commissioner. So this is dated May 11th. Attention, Jenny Dickinson. So I asked Jenny why Anderson Perry didn't respond specifically to me, and I'm not the person who contracted with them. So they are working with Jenny and not with me. So dear Jenny, this letter has been prepared as a response to your request to provide information that would address concerns raised at the Port of Columbia Port Commissioners meeting on April 12th. He puts it April 13th. Many of the concerns raised by the commissioners meeting fall outside of the engineering scope of the project, such as comments related to homelessness, vandalism, right to farm, crop spraying, etc. The following information is provided to help address concerns related to the design of the project and grant funding through the Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office, RCO, or Washington State Department of Transportation. They use the acronym WSDOT, WSDOT. A concern was raised about the anticipated maintenance cost as presented. Members of the Trail Steering Committee researched typical maintenance costs by contacting other agencies and trail operators in the region. The typical costs experienced by other regional trails were then used by the steering committee to create an estimate of maintenance costs for the Touchy Valley Trail, adjusted for types of amenities and trail length. As part of the maintenance cost discussion, a concern related to the maintenance and upkeep of proposed bathrooms along the trail was raised. To minimize the amount of maintenance and upkeep of restaurants along the trail, the design includes a single restroom at the trailhead at Lewis and Clark Trail State Park and shelters for rented portable toilets at the Waitsburg and Blue Mountain Station trailheads. In discussion with the State Parks Department, the restroom at the Lewis and Clark Trail State Park would be maintained by the State Park Department, as they already maintain an existing bathroom at this location. The shelters at the other trailheads would provide a convenient, established location for rented portable toilets during certain times of the year or events, should the port choose to utilize that option. Concerns about the requirement for snow removal and the liability of not removing snow from the trail was raised during the maintenance discussion. Snow removal is not typically performed on regional trails that the steering committee has been in contact with. Liability related to the trail in general, snow removal included, is covered through RCW 4.24.200, whose purpose is to, quote, encourage owners or others in lawful possession and control of land and water areas or channels to make them available for the public for recreational purposes, for limiting their liability toward persons entering thereon and toward persons who may be injured or otherwise damaged by the acts or omissions of persons entering thereon. That was a long sentence. A concern about property ownership was raised related to the ownership of the right-of-way along the railroad, specifically the 30% design plans had property owner names within the right of way at 3 locations along the trail. These property owner names were mislabeled on the 30% design plans. Columbia County GIS information was used to label properties to provide clarity on the ownership adjacent to the trail. GIS property maps, such as the one available from Columbia County, are an approximation of property lines and are not as accurate as a survey map prepared using title information and survey research. Anderson Perry and Associates has reviewed hundreds of documents throughout the process of defining the right-of-way and port ownership of the property, and can confirm that the port owns the right-of-way along the length of the trail outside of Waitsburg and Dayton. The stray property owner labels will be removed from future plans. In addition, a memo detailing the research completed and plan sheets showing the port's ownership will be provided as part of the design package. Concerns related to the WSDOT grant funding included how a lack of matching funds would negatively affect the grant. Expenses prior to the grant not being eligible for reimbursement, grant funding only covering construction costs, additional requirements now that a portion of the trail is proposed in WSDOT right-of-way, and the requirement for the project to be on the WSDOT State Transportation Improvement Program, STIP plan. The current WSDOT grant opportunity does not require a match, and matching funds will not be considered in the review criteria for requests of $800,000 or less. However, as mentioned during the commissioners' meeting, review criteria for applications requested over $800,000 will include a consideration of matching funds. Projects for cities/towns or census designated places within county or tribal jurisdictions that have a population of 10,000 or less will be compared to other projects that serve similar sized communities. Funding matches one part of 5 total considerations in the deliverability section of the grant. The deliverability section of the grant is only 12% of the scoring, making the local match a very small consideration in the overall grant. WSDOT staff have encouraged the port to apply for construction funding regardless of the availability of matching funds, as this project has region-wide benefits, support from multiple agencies in the region, and will be compared to projects from other small communities with limited ability to provide a match. The WSDOT Regional Planning Engineer, Paul Gonseth, is an active member of the Touchy Valley Trail Steering Committee and was also on the Dayton Main Street Safety Action Plan Committee that developed conceptual designs within the WSDOT right-of-way. The Safety Action Plan was approved by the City of Dayton and the WSDOT Planning Engineer. Further, the WSDOT Planning Engineer had agreed to provide a letter of support from WSDOT for the project within the WSDOT right-of-way. The 90% design is funded by a previous bicycle and pedestrian program WSDOT grant, and the final 10% would be funded by the current grant opportunity that would include final design and construction funds. This scenario has been discussed with and endorsed by WSDOT funding staff. Expenditures would not be made until the construction grant funds are secured. The grant program requirements specifically state that local agencies with projects selected for funding will be responsible for including the project in the STIP, the Statewide Transportation Improvement Plan, prior to the obligation of funding. Obligation of funding will not occur until after award announcements are made in June 2023, giving agencies over 1 year to place projects on the STIP, the improvement plan. Many concerns were raised about RCO grant funding and the long-term impacts to port property, especially related to the future railroad use. More specifically, several concerns were raised that include any part of the trail project in an RCO grant would bring all of the railroad property under the terms of the RCO grant, which preclude many uses and require the property to remain as recreational use in perpetuity. During our research into grant funding possibilities, Anderson Perry discussed the trail project and possibility of RCO grant funding with Allison Green, RCO Outdoor Grant Manager. Specific discussion included identifying the project area and how they would relate to the continued railroad operation. Her guidance to us was that the grants allow for project areas to be defined within properties to allow for split uses in different areas of these properties. In our discussions with Allison, it was clear that the project with a trail alongside the railroad would be a consideration for grant funding. Related to the concern about project area, RCO has a template that each project is to use when developing the long-term obligations for each specific project. Within this template, we're going to get into numbers here. Section 25, long-term obligations of the projects and sponsors, page 34 of 50, paragraph B states that, quote, the RCO requires that the project area continue to function for the purpose for which these grant funds were approved in perpetuity, quote unquote. This statement, project area, quote unquote, can be the entire parcel or it can be limited to a specific portion of a parcel. The language of the template, section 25, long-term obligations of the projects and sponsors, page 34 of 50, paragraph C. All real property or facilities acquired, developed, renovated, and or restored with funding assistance shall remain in the same ownership and in public use / access status in perpetuity unless otherwise expressly provided in the agreement or applicable policies, or unless a transfer or change in use is approved by the RCO through an amendment. The practical application of the statement is used in the preparation of the agreement between the sponsor and the RCO. This language applies to the identified quote unquote project area, and that if another use on the same parcel is quote unquote expressly identified in the agreement, for example, agriculture / railroad operation in a different location on the same parcel, the prevention of that use is not applicable. If you have any specific questions related to the trail design or future grant funding opportunities, please let us know. We're happy to discuss at any time. Sincerely, Anderson Perry by Brian Henson.
Thank you for that. I make no apologies for my decisions.
I'm not asking for apologies.
We were presented with information at the workshop, and we were given a rough draft or the final draft of information to make a decision off of, and we were given the grant information to look at. So I made my decision. I made my interpretation of what those grants said, and I stand by that decision. And I appreciate your time with the letter.
I'm not asking for apologies. I'm just asking and hoping and wishing that if you have any questions from the information that is provided to you from the experts.
I wouldn't say I came to the meeting with questions. I came with legitimate concerns, and I didn't have any questions I wanted to ask. All the questions I had were answered in the presentation.
Okay, but you said you had concerns.
Concerns are not questions. The
So,
information was there. The information provided was very concerning, and I didn't agree that it was the direction we should go.
Okay,
And
so-
that's said on that. It's been decided. Thank you.
okay, you're welcome.
Is there a, do we have a copy of that?
No, that, well, we'll give you a copy.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Uh-huh. All right, so now we come to the executive session to discuss real estate.
So before we go to that, there's some things I wanted to talk about in the rest of our meeting. And nothing major, so don't worry about that. I want to talk about the housing a little bit. Because there's definitely a lack of housing in our community, and it affects everybody that's looking to move to our area to work, to live, to retire, to recreate, to whatever they want to come here for. There's just a severe lack of inventory in all price ranges, from low income to affordable to market price and whatnot. And I don't exactly know what the port's role should be in this, but at this point, I see that we have some property that's part of the Blue Mountain Station property. There's about 6.9 acres that where the Bell House is, the original farmhouse. And so you got this one residence in the middle of this 6.9 acres. And I think that piece of property might be a little bit underutilized. it's zoned, I was talking to Jenny about this, and it's zoned AR1 agricultural residential, so it can be split up and subdivided. I think it would be really awesome if we could help alleviate some of the stress that the community is having and some of the lack of housing we have. And possibly start working on some development ideas for that piece. I know we just signed a year lease. It's going to take some time before we would be able to get anything done and worked up. But I don't know, I have a vision that we could, with basically 7 acres, we could put a couple, 2 or 3, 8-unit apartment buildings. You could have a couple of 4-unit, townhouse type places and some duplexes, and there's decent space out there that there could be a significant, 30 or 40 units that would, alleviate some of the inventory. How far would we take that development as support? I guess we'd have to come to decide if that's something we even wanted to do and how far we would go with it. But I think we could make it a pretty attractive piece of property for an investor to come in and purchase if we were to do the infrastructure work and the surveying and subdivide it out. And we own the utilities on the property of Blue Mountain Station anyway, so we could extend those out there, which in turn would provide utilities to the rest of the industrial commercial area. But we could run the utilities out there, put in the road and the curb and gutter and the sidewalks, and basically have a turnkey ready development that we could put up, bring revenue back into the port and bring housing into the community. This land that just sits there without doing a whole lot for the community right now, and I think it could be put to better use.
It could
Be put to use, right? I know we have some money in the budget for design of buildings. So I don't know, maybe we could think about getting some conceptual ideas. I don't know if you guys are in agreement with even pursuing that option of, going down that road to possibly develop that piece. But if we did and that went well, we have another 7 acres of flat land up on Rock Hill that we could consider doing something with as well. But we have options that we could develop and bring some housing to the area. We don't have anything in our area in Columbia County for people that are graduating high school or getting out of college to get their first apartment or go rent a duplex with the roommate and work their way through college. The lack of inventory is driving prices up, and if we had the inventory, it would help bring prices back down into the affordable range. And we're close to that anyway. We're not far away, but we could get the affordable down a little bit more and get the inventory up. Might be something to think about.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with taking a look at what options are available to us to be able to do something like that. Definitely review, investigate it, and with the presentation today, 2020 numbers, they look, pretty fair, reasonable, not too crazy. But we know that that is not the current situation and probably near future situations. So if there is a way that we can, I don't think there's a way to get out front of it. But if there's a way to run alongside of it to try to eliminate some of that pain that's going to come with that, I'd absolutely agree that we should do some investigation, some look into what our entity can do to help the community alleviate some of those stresses.
Can we consider that, Jenny, under infrastructure?
Well, that's what I was just looking at. Seth and I didn't know he was interested in us putting in the infrastructure. I don't think we're allowed to by law, but I need to find out.
Okay.
Because ports aren't allowed to do housing.
Okay.
We don't have the legislative authority. But I don't know about the infrastructure.
Mhm,
We do infrastructure.
mhm.
I just don't know if we would be allowed to do it. I was trying to look under the powers, but I can't find it that fast. I'm looking on my phone.
Obviously,
So
yeah.
I would need to first, it doesn't mean it couldn't be marketed for sale as a place for housing.
Right.
I just don't know that we can do the improvements. So
All right.
Whatever
that would need to
options-
be, and then we also, it's not in our comp plan. That's for sure. Housing is not mentioned in our comp plan. that's something that we need to address long-term. I wanted us to be able to go and view the marina before we started talking about long-term planning, but yeah, so I would need to do some research into what is allowed, we are allowed by law to do.
Right.
Well, that's why I say I don't know how far we want to take it as a
Yeah.
board, because I'm not looking for us to build the apartments and the buildings and build a housing development, but basically to put the utilities in the road in, to do the infrastructure.
And I want to make real clear, though, that you're talking, when we put in the food park, it's 20, we bought 28 acres and 21 of it is in the food park development. So
Mhm.
he's talking about 6.9 that is not part of that,
Right.
that at the end. So it's not like we're taking it from
Mhm.
business development. It is just, we did that on purpose when we did it. We wanted to keep some of it outside the food park in case we had another
Mhm.
use. So,
Right, so back to your comment about the comp plan, we would have to open the comp plan, have public meetings.
Yeah.
We'd have to get input from
Yeah.
the community before we could make.
well, right, if not to sell land.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
but
talking
if
about
we
just
were-
modifying the comp plan.
Oh, to modify the comp plan, oh, yes, yeah, it's a process.
Mm.
That's why I wanted to go look at the marina. I wanted, the
So,
commissioners to have a better
Right.
familiarity with what we have before we start talking about changing our comp plan.
okay.
But, infrastructure's in there. I just don't know, I just don't know if we can do it for housing. I'm just not sure.
Okay. We can
Got
look
it.
at
I'd
that
have to look into that.
at a
Yeah.
later date then.
Well, yeah, I can
Thank
look
you.
into it before the next meeting. I mean, I'm glad to do it. It's not hard. I should say it's not, it isn't that it's not hard. It's just trying to dig through all of the RCWs, and I would probably send an email to MRSC to make sure I wasn't missing something, because there are a lot of RCWs, so
Okay,
that's
all right.
probably the way I would handle
Yeah,
it.
we're not asking for an answer at the moment, so,
Right.
yes, thank you for your thoughts there, great idea. All right, we are now, any other,
I'm just thinking. The only other thing I have, I really appreciated the tour that we had at Blue Mountain Station. It was really good to get out there and meet the business owners and talk with them and see how they're doing. And it's really, I really like seeing the success that the businesses are having out there. It's good to be a part of that. The only thing that was disappointing was the feedback from some of the businesses that they don't have the foot traffic that they would like in the retail end of it. And, I understand that, and it almost feels like we're doing them a little bit of a disservice by, and then the facility's not really set up for retail. We can't have the signage by the road, and it's more for production. And we allow retail there, and it's just hard for us to get the advertising, to get the draw, to get the attraction, to bring people in off the highway. And being outside of the city limits, and people aren't, you don't get the foot traffic for people walking up and down Main Street and the sidewalks and whatnot. So it's disappointing to me that we can't provide them a better opportunity to retail their goods locally. I was disappointed to hear that a tasting room is going to be, one of our renters is going to be going to a tasting room in Walla Walla. Like, well, shoot, why couldn't that be here in our town? Like, why can't we have, why do they have to go to Walla Walla? Why can't we have that here? And yeah, I would love to see that business and that retail end of it kept here in our community in town. Because those sales that they make from, their tasting in Walla Walla goes to Walla Walla County, the taxes do. So I would really like us to think about and see what we can do to increase the opportunity for our production businesses to have an outlet to sell, to do retail. I don't know, I think it would be really awesome if the port owned a building downtown that we could have a tasting room, open up a I don't know, I'm just kind of spitballing here, brainstorming. But if we had a facility, a building that our tenants could use that had the foot traffic of downtown, it had really the foot traffic, that's what they're lacking. And we have a hard time getting the people to go out of town to go out there. and then stop again if they're on their way through. They don't want to stop. They're already got their foot down on the floor, already at highway speed, and they just keep on going by. But if they were already, if we had something in town that is, I don't know, it's just an idea, but
Yes.
if it's something to think about, a better opportunity for them to retail their product, because it's hard to get the customers, it's hard to get the foot traffic out there at Blue Mountain Station. I mean, we do the events and that helps, and then it goes back to empty parking lots all through the week. And so it'd be really nice if we could do something, whether it's renovating a vacant building downtown, building a new one, purchasing a lot and doing an open air market. I don't know, there's different ideas that we could talk about, but it would be really nice if, you know, our manufacturers had a facility that they could open up shop and have the traffic and have the people coming.
I would imagine that that would help the businesses that are currently already there. Also,
Right.
there's some residual that would come from that, from some of that foot traffic that people have.
Mhm.
So I would say it would benefit both entities in that matter if it was downtown.
Mhm. And that may be something we could, you know, in work partnership with the city on, and I don't know, it's something to think about.
Something to think about. Thank you.
May I
Yes.
speak, please? Thank you. So the business that said they were gonna open a tasting room in Walla Walla did not say they were closing their tasting room out here.
No, I didn't say they were closing.
Oh, okay.
No, no,
You,
no,
you
I
said
didn't- no.
move,
If I said move, I'm sorry. I
you
meant
did, you said move.
Opening.
I would just like an opportunity to clarify.
No, I
that.
didn't think that they were closing.
They are
this year.
not.
It's-
They are not. And they said how much they appreciate doing business out here and that they're
Mhm.
staying. E-business is the one that mentioned lack of foot traffic. It was, I don't know, it was tasting room. And those businesses can move downtown if they want.
Mhm.
But she is more concerned about the lack of community support that she's had here. The people, there's just a lot of bad mouthing of the businesses at Blue Mountain Station, and she's very upset by it. So foot traffic's part of it. And then the co-op market that rents space there does sell all the products that are made there.
Mhm.
And their business has been going really well. So their foot traffic has actually increased or their sales have increased. So, and then there were a lot of businesses there that don't have retail that were really awesome. So I hope that that is, you know, it was never meant to be retail, but it was modeled after like Chucker Cherries, where they have a production in back. And if they want to have a little retail area in front to sell some, they can to supplement. So if a business doesn't have wholesale business, then Blue Mountain Station might not be the best place for them. I agree, because it's meant to be the model where they have wholesale plus the retail. And like the honey guy, you know, he doesn't have retail at all, and he sells lots in the market and he's happy, but he has a huge wholesale business. So I don't think that the port should operate a tasting room, honestly. I think that would be, I don't know how we would because of alcohol and all of that. But I mean, going downtown, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'd have to talk to the Blue Mountain Station businesses and see what interest there was in, if there was a place downtown that, if it would change what they did. I mean, I don't know. I can ask them, I guess. I can pull them, but I hope, I mean, that we have really amazing businesses there. And that was a really cool tour. So I hope that we can also acknowledge how many happy businesses there are down there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think he was saying there was any unhappy.
No, not at all.
Okay.
At all.
Okay.
I didn't see that.
Good.
The other thing, doesn't the port of Walla Walla, isn't those 4 wineries by the airport, isn't that port?
Yeah, but they don't operate the wineries.
Yeah.
They
it's
lease
their-
them.
It's, yeah,
They
their
lease
property,
them,
their buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mean that we couldn't own a building and lease it out, because that's what we do, but
Yeah.
to operate a tasting room would be frightening. If the state audit, I mean, when the state auditor comes, they make you account for where all your cash receipts are. Can you imagine the nightmare of the port having operating a tasting room? I mean, we'd be under scrutiny. So
All right.
But owning it and leasing it, that's not, yeah, that's fine. That doesn't,
Yeah.
we do that all the time, so that's normal.
Right,
Yeah.
like you're
Yeah.
saying, we have to find ways to encourage tourism in Columbia County.
Right.
Yeah.
And bringing those people in,
Mhm.
or, stopping in all of the businesses there in Blue Mountain Station. So,
We do have one of the Blue Mountain Station businesses here. Would you like to hear from him?
Sure.
Okay,
Dave?
So part of what's happening, I think, is COVID still. Most of the businesses down there, except the co-op, are new enough that we've kind of been in the throes of COVID for the majority of our existence here. The other thing is just understanding what works here and what doesn't. I had the best weekend this last weekend that I've ever had. And part of that was just how I advertised.
do you mean at your tasting
Yeah,
room?
my taste.
Oh,
Yeah, best weekend I've ever had. So.
wow,
And-
really?
And we just changed up a little bit of our advertising.
Because we didn't have an event. There was no event.
It was just some advertising I did on my own, and
Excellent.
it's a matter of now that we are really beginning to be back open.
Mhm.
As a business owner, I can be more comfortable in, spending some money on advertising on my own and targeting for
Right.
people who do want to come to Dayton, visit my business and then go
Mhm.
see the rest of the community.
Mhm.
That would be really, that's all I wanted to say is, it's very, I think traffic there is encouraging and definitely going up.
Is it?
Because there just weren't a lot of people traveling the last year.
Right.
Yeah, and
That's
I'm not opposed to us thinking about having the port locate downtown. I think we would have to open the comp plan though and add that, because we don't own any property there. So whether we were to buy property there or whatever we did, it's a little out of our bailiwick. And not that we can't, just it's out of our norm. So I would say we'd need to get some feedback and make sure the public wants us to
And correct me if
veer
I'm
down
wrong,
there.
but I think your conversation is more like a conversation. Is it a need? Is it something to look at? Those
Right.
type of things, and there's research, so we're not gonna go pop up a building tomorrow and say, hey, here you go. There's a lot of work to be done before then, but I think it's worth a conversation with the people that it most affects, community, and those type of things, for sure down the road. But I applaud the entrepreneurship. You guys
That's
go
what
on
we're
best
here for.
weekend ever. That's what it's about, and changing up how you're advertising and being self-sufficient and saying, hey, I'm running this business, I'm gonna make it work. That is the type of attitude we need to have in every business. So I applaud that.
And also, just so you know, Dave's business is, what would be the percentage is wholesale, 99.9?
Yeah.
Compared to your tasting room? Yeah, so it's the example that we were talking about where
Right.
most of his business is done wholesale. The retail is a bonus.
They're very pleasant.
Very good.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, yes,
Well, that's good. That's good to hear.
thank you.
Speaking of that, did we get that ceiling electrical fixed? Thank you.
Maybe that was more like.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that we're giving you the best building we can, make sure it's squared away.
All right, now into executive session. So the purpose of the executive session is to discuss real estate. Jenny, how much time do you think we're going to need?
I would say 20 minutes, no decision will be made.
Okay, so we plan to take no action after this
Correct.
executive session, so we will break now for 20 minutes.
I'm gonna grab a glass of water.
Yes.
Okay, those of you online, I'm gonna put you in the waiting room.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Other angle to this and walk around.
Excuse me, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm Chris. So.
Oh, no worries.
You're welcome. Yeah, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll see you later, Jenny.
Bye, Melody. Thanks for coming.
Sorry.
Hey, good luck to you. Congratulations. I'm gonna miss her. She usually got me my water.
Oh,
Story. Oh, no, that's no reflection.
I guess I need to.
No, I
need to-
know where it's
I need to-
at.
I need to learn the rules.
No, I know where it's at. I was just spoiled. So that has no
Okay.
reflection. It's
Okay,
just,
well, now I know.
it was me saying, hey, thank you.
Sure.
Wish I could put everybody in the waiting room all at once.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and start the timer. I just loved how Kim had it. She just,
I started it when Joy started talking, but,
I did too. Yeah, thank you.
all
All
right.
right, here we go.
So the rail operator wants to buy the railroad. It's not something I would recommend, but I told him I'd bring it to you. So,
He wants to buy it.
oh, yeah.
Oh,
If I hand this to you, I need it back. Sure. Okay, this can't get out to the public because it's. But he, oh, sorry. He sent this to me on the 29th, and it's not the first time he's brought it up, but he wants to buy the railroad. And he is offering, he says lower but six-figure valuation, which I think is totally undervalued. Anyway, that's what you got.
so you say he has broached this topic before in the past?
Correct.
Okay,
And the commission took no action and had no interest in selling it at the time.
When was that?
Huh?
When was that? When was that?
I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I would say, maybe.
interesting how he prefaced that with his concern about the trail concept. Interesting.
What do you mean? What?
In his first line there, he says, given the current commission, and I suppose at this point some clarity on their direction related to the trail concept.
Yeah, he thinks this is a friendlier audience, apparently.
Okay, so
I'd
what,
definitely be interested in entertaining that.
what is the current valuation?
Beats me. No clue. No.
Yeah.
No, if you think about the value of the rail and the value of the property, there's no way it's low 6 figures.
No, I'm
Not a
not saying
chance.
evaluation's
Not
very
a
accurate, but I
chance.
would definitely be interested if they were interested in purchasing it.
I would definitely I would agree that the conversation should be had about what it looks like and weigh the cons and pros of that and determine whether or not that is something that we think that is viable to maintain, to make sure that railroad is supported in a manner that needs
If
to be.
we sell it, we can't control that. Yeah.
I
That's
think
just
they would be
my-
more apt to put money into it if they owned it rather than, I'm not gonna put a lot of money into a house I'm renting, but if I own it, I might remodel it and,
There's a wisdom in that. If I was leasing something on big ticket dollars, I would keep it running,
right.
just to keep it running. But as far as any major upgrades, I wouldn't sink a lot of money into it. And I know that there's not a huge desire for us to sink a bunch of money
Right.
into it.
So I'll
So
have a bunch of money.
I'll say yes or no about whether or not the deal, we're a ways from that. But I definitely think a conversation should be had about it.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm still reading his regards to his interest again. Rail is coming back. Really, I just don't see rail is coming back. And especially here,
He just,
we're always running cleaner, something. Yes. And you make the comment that he's making here, if it was his, then they might include more incentive to repair the situation.
So the price of diesel, we may have no choice. And with Washington State going to 2020, what was it, 2030? 7 years, you can't buy a internal combustion engine in the state of Washington, diesel or fuel, any fuel.
No, right, diesel is so expensive right now with the cost of diesel right now.
So I'd like to see what that's gonna look like on our highway 7 years from now. Yes, you can operate one, but you won't be able to buy one and license it in the state of Washington according to the governor. So Those things are coming down the road, so it'd be interesting to have the conversation for certainly.
Mhm.
So you're proposing considering this at the present time? Okay. So,
Are you guys interested in my opinion?
yes, absolutely.
I think that it's you, if we sell it, we have no control over what they do with it. I just wanted to make sure you know that. So you can't, if it is, yeah, pardon me,
It'd be theirs.
exactly.
Right.
Just want to make sure you understand that. And we cannot do anything like this without having it appraised, which would probably be very expensive, just so you know. And I don't know, it didn't go well the last time it was privately owned, which is why it ended up in our court's lap. So I don't feel strongly, I don't really feel that strongly one way or another, but we can't give this away for
Right.
low six figures. I mean, that is like Laura said at the city council meeting the other night, that's an insult. You know, it is, it's very valuable property,
Mhm.
so. But,
So I have
Yeah.
no concept of what the value is, if he's talking low six figures.
well, if you think about the value of the iron,
Mhm.
I mean, if we were, let's say the railroad failed and we kept it, we would have the value of the iron and the value of the property, because that's a lot of, 100-foot
Miles.
right of way for 37 miles, that's a lot of property.
Mhm.
So you have to think about the value of the property.
Mhm.
My thought on it is, if we're truly looking for economic development and we're trying to be that catalyst for industry and for people to be successful, that is an avenue. That would be an avenue what if we made it successful? What if it was upgraded? What if it was viable for this area? Like it had been for 100 years. Then we're looking at going, well, are we wanting to do that or put people that are experts in it doing it? So I think that's just the conversation. And the other part about it is I've always wondered, and I've always had a concern about it is there's very little of it. The majority of it is in Walla Walla County.
Mhm.
Very little of it is in Columbia County. The majority of it is Walla Walla County.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, I understand how we got it, why we got it. We didn't ask for it, it just got dropped in our laps, from my understanding. Is that correct? We didn't go pursue it. and go
No,
buy
but it was because of the flood and the shipping, and we were shipping asparagus at the time, and the Port of Walla Walla wanted nothing to do with it.
And I think there wasn't there a conversation about, they were doing some more up here at the plant, that more trains are coming out because they wanted to buy a little piece of that. We talked about the last session, about a little chunk of the.
Yeah, no, that's not because more trains are coming out, it's grain growers that wants to buy it,
Because of why though?
because they want to expand their seed plant, it has nothing to do with rail.
So it expands their seed plant. Okay, so that's expansion. Could that
Right.
be put on rail?
Well, no, that's a separate, you guys, this is a
I'm
separate
just-
thing, yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah, it's a separate thing, and we're meeting with them on Friday, that's why there was no report on it, but, no, they won't put it on rail, trust me, the rail operators tried. And the grain growers here won't ship anything by rail, the
Today.
only shipping that there is by rail, possible is out of Prescott,
Yep.
okay?
That's today,
Right.
but when you're paying $13 a gallon for diesel, that might change.
Maybe, it
Rail's a lot
hasn't
more
yet.
economical way to ship
Hmm.
just about everything. Rail is really coming back a lot.
It is, it is, I wish it was here, yeah, I do, that's been our whole.
If we're maybe holding them back because we own it and we're charging them rent and they don't really want to invest in or improve upon it, then maybe that's the bottleneck that they're dealing with.
But yeah, I think.
I think we need
should be
to, I think we should pursue this and entertain this and at least, start the process of getting it appraised and finding out exactly what kind of a dollar figure we'd be talking about with this.
How serious they are.
And how serious they are.
How expensive is the appraisal?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Appraisal for a lot is, for a commercial buildings between 4,000 and 5,000. I have no idea what this would be.
Right, okay, yeah. But if he's gonna come back to us with a six-figure number and the valuation, and we're paying a significant amount for the valuation,
No, I'll just find somebody, see if I can find somebody to give us an appraisal or a quote for an appraisal.
Yeah, quote for an appraisal for sure, because if it's absolutely crazy, maybe that's a conversation we have and say, all right, what, this is crazy on this end. How do we get this, that's not crazy? So me and being fiscally responsible also at the same time.
Once again, your opinion, as far as the port is concerned, it's either way for you.
Well,
We'll never get it back, obviously.
no, oh, no, we'll never get it back. No,
There's
oh,
no
wait, you guys,
value in the
please
scrap
don't, please,
iron.
please, you guys don't want me to interrupt with you. Will you please not interrupt me, please? It is. The railroad is nothing but a headache, okay? It's nothing but a headache. So the easy answer for me to say is, yeah, let's sell the damn thing, okay? That's the easy thing to say. But when I think about the value to the port and the lack of it's the business has not grown on this line like he wanted it to. We discussed that before. The problem at Wallula, you can't get the grain shipping. This doesn't, this does nothing for that problem. So if we sell it to him and then he fails, then we've got this rail line sitting here that nobody can do anything about because the private sector owns it. So yes, it would make my life way easier to sell it. That would be the easy answer. I just don't know if it's right for the community long-term. I'm not opposed to looking into it. I just don't know. I just don't know if it's right. That's it.
Okay, all right.
So I will see if I can find out how to get something like this appraised and try to get a price.
Okay. Thank you. Any other?
And I would, one last thing I would like to say is that there's an awful lot going on here. I'm already trying to work on the appraisal for the other lot, so this may not be super fast.
Sure.
So I just ask for some grace in the time.
Yeah, just let them know.
I'll talk,
Probably.
yeah, I'll talk to him.
Okay.
But thank you for bringing it to our attention. Appreciate that. Yeah.
He's back.
Thank you.
Great.
That it?
7-11. We are adjourned at 7:11.
Don't adjourn it until the people come back in from the waiting room.
Oh, okay.
Larry, you got mine in? Nope, I didn't. Just a signature, I don't have to put any hours.
I don't think
Yes.
they do that. They just
Well-
sign it,
Yeah.
They make it up.
So, Johnny, I guess you need to sign the minutes,
I'll hand you
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
and then also, yeah, I need those back.
You got
too.
it.
Yes, thank you.
And then that way we get this way.
Yep.
These are the same minutes that we approved, correct?
Yeah, we're gonna make that one change on the second page.
Yep.
And then
Okay.
it's, yeah.
So we are all back.
All right.
We back?
Yes, everybody's back.
Okay, it is 7.
No,
You stay watch.
no, it's okay.
Ending the 14th,
Going to action taken and
break up, but
You have to log out.
I'll call you back maybe tomorrow or the next day. Okay. Bye.
No, I don't have to log back in or out.
They might address it. And you'll let us know on the tablets on what happens.
Yes, I'll just return these and get some better ones.
Well,
Sorry
with
about
ele-
that.
No, with electronics, you never know. I would not hold you responsible for that at all. You didn't build the daycare, so. Certainly.
Jeannie, do you have your time sheet?
oh, yes, I'm sorry, I gave
Oh,
it to
yep.
Jamie.
Got it.
You're welcome.
everybody.
Thank you.